We'll call the meeting to
It doesn't reflect the main motion right now.
So after the word agenda in the third paragraph?
No, 5A in the minutes.
Yeah, I'm looking at that one.
So, yes, this is, 5A, and then first paragraph is Parks Chair Sue, second paragraph after discussion, third one Patrick Cheney. The next line after that should be main motion with condition carried, and then the next paragraph is after discussion.
Requesting.
All right, does that make sense?
Okay?
Yeah,
And that's the only significant thing. There's a couple of other grammar things that if anybody else saw them, we could deal with it. Otherwise, this is a lot better than when it started.
okay.
Good.
Well, and then actually too, Sue, you noticed on 10 adjourn, the adjournment was seconded by Julia Arata Ferrata, not Mark Vivian.
Oh, yes, that too.
Okay,
So I got that one. Okay,
yeah. So are we in favor of the minutes as amended? Those in favor?
Voting? Yes.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, public appearances for non-agenda items? Nobody here in that capacity? Review and approve agenda. And I'll just, first we'll have an emotion to approve the agenda as is.
I'll move to approve the agenda, but I think we're going to amend it.
Yeah. A second?
Second.
Okay. First, I'll just say that I created a different order that was printed and stuck on your computers, and you don't have to adhere to that at all. I was just thinking of people in the audience and those on the clock, like Wade, getting all that business taken care of first. First of all, because if we go over the capital improvements, that's going to take a while. And so that's why I just created this other order. If there's a different way of doing it, or if someone wants to just entirely skip what I've suggested, that's fine. And as I was thinking about this a couple hours ago, then I checked with Wade, because of what it looks like the length here, that we could move 5D to August. That, again, doesn't have to be, but it would be a way of monitoring time. Of course, I don't know what August's agenda is going to look like either. So those are proposals that I have. And if you're looking at it, I hope it makes sense. And I've got two on the same page.
What about the, let's see here. Is 6, oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, 6D, the inclusive playground update is being moved to 5A?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And then the next would be the Fahey presentation. And then Wade would be talking about in C, the Terra Vista Ag Park, followed by the Parks and Open Space Plan update, if I'm reading that my own order correctly. Then the capital improvements moves to E. And then F is the proposed Parks, Recreation, Forestry operating budget with Forester. What does everybody think?
Move to approve that.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll have to have you help me keep track of what we just did. We have to vote, correct? Okay, those in favor of the amended order?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right.
So first
I'm just gonna
We may need a bit of time between each one to shuffle back and forth to the right spot.
okay. Okay, so now we are at our new 5A, which is the inclusive playground update with Corey Horton.
It, okay, very good. This, R.A. Smith, Corey Horton from R.A. Smith is here tonight. And as you recall, we're continuing to work on our inclusive playground project. As you recall, last month we did have received proposals. We went out for RFP for the actual design of the playground, and then we also had an alternate for installation, and then the third piece was the poured in place. So that's all out to bid, and we got the results. So we're evaluating those. The next step is to do the RFP for the site work, and Corey and his staff have worked to put that together. As you recall, I did include in the Park Commission packet last month the site plan that we were working off of to put that RFP together. That RFP is currently out on the street and has a deadline of July 16th?
I believe that's.
July 16th of a deadline for that. And what's of note now is that there's a removal scheduled for one of the trees at the inclusive playground. And it wasn't a decision that was made easily. It certainly was a decision that we contemplated, and Corey actually, I believe I sent to you an email from Corey that kind of rehashed the process that we went through in order to come to this conclusion. But certainly with the tree advisory committee and the city forester, they're truly interested in saving all the trees, and we certainly are of that same opinion. But at the end of the day, this option really made the most economic and actually logistical site sense for us. So that's what we did bid. So. And I guess what we're here to do is to discuss that a bit, if we'd like. And certainly Corey's here to answer any questions that the Park Commission may have. And I will tell you that we certainly are planning to plant additional trees and those kinds of things to, replace the tree that we are going to have to remove. So I think with that, we'll open it up for questions, if there are any, or Corey, if you had a couple comments to make.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I could, just to kind of lay the groundwork of how we are at where we're at and kind of the thought process that's gone into that. So I guess, first of all, as an introduction, some of you I know very well, some of you probably don't know me. I previously was the director of public works for the city. So actually, I believe these trees were the trees that were spaded from McKee Road to get installed.
Verona, exactly.
Yeah.
Verona Road.
From Verona and McKee Road.
Yep.
Yep. So the saving of these trees happened when I was at the city, and like Scott said, we don't take any tree losses lightly. We very much went through the design, trying to avoid any and all impacts that we could. On a personal level, I do the same thing on my own lot. I have some trees that probably should get cut down, but I don't cut them down because I really I value trees a lot. So with that, we're building an inclusive park here, and this park is meant to serve users of all abilities, both physically, cognitively. So there's a lot of factors in how we laid the site out to address a lot of different concerns for the paths and for the play area and the connections that were made. So I see Scott gave me a copy of some alternative alignments that Katie, I guess, had looked at. Those are very similar to the exercise that we went through when we did our design. We, again, first looked at trying to avoid all impacts. One of the alignments that Katie has is a concrete walk kind of at the face of the parking lot, which there's two constraints there that kind of led us away from that alternative. One of them is a safety concern. With the users of this park, the Safe Kids group was a part of our inclusive committee, and they wanted to make sure that the park was safe. So as much as the walk is probably better than kids running through the parking lot like they currently do, there was a desire to get that walking path away from the parking lot so kids don't jut out into the parking lot with moving cars and such. The other constraint that's there is the slopes, and there's a stormwater basin immediately to the south of that area. So when we're doing a path, it needs to meet American with Disabilities Act requirements. So that dictates that you can have no more than a 2% cross slope. So in order to put a concrete walk along the parking lot, you would essentially have to fill in that entire stormwater basin. It would be very close to the traffic, and that's why kind of that alternative was ruled out. I guess before I move on to the other alignments, are there any questions related to that? The other, I guess, component with that alternative is we're proposing to add additional ADA parking stalls further to the west that will serve the inclusive park, but also could be used for people accessing the splash pad. So we're trying to make our connection as short as possible for those users. Obviously, if people have difficulty with mobility, we want to try to minimize the distance that they need to travel. So the other alternative that I see was to kind of move that connection point more towards the middle of the site. And there's a lot of things that you don't see on the exhibit that was our preliminary design. And I actually gave a flash drive of our more current design. If you could go to sheet 3 or C300 and then pan down and a little to the right there. So you'll see our layout there, and you can, it's kind of faint, but you can see where the trees are as well. So the distance between the trees is pretty tight. While from a forestry perspective, you know, there's a tiny bit of space there. From when you're putting paths in, if you start working in the root zone of trees, you're going to end up killing them, especially more sensitive trees like oak trees. So to fit a path between those trees with the layout and configuration that is out there is very difficult. Not only because of the width of the path, but also because of the elevation that you need to go up and down to get from the inclusive park down to the tree elevation and then back up to the splash pad elevation. So able to do all of that grading, it's just so wide, and you can see even in the alignment that in our selected alignment, you can see that the width of the grading that's necessary to get that path in there is quite wide. And if you kind of visualize putting that over the top of where those trees are, there just isn't space to fit a path between the trees without either working in that root zone and impacting the trees or taking out trees in other locations. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't go kind of down the middle of the site. Another reason is again, that connectivity between the ADA stalls that we were adding and the splash pad. Again, there may be users that park their car at the west side near the inclusive park and want to go to the splash pad first. So we didn't want to have them have to walk all the way into the inclusive park if their ultimate destination was to go to the splash pad first. So that was another reason why we didn't put the path down the middle in that location. So we did consider also putting the path all the way to the south, which is the left on this exhibit, and going around kind of the bottom of the trees. But again, that's the distance from the parking lot to that location. I paced it off. I think it's something like 150 feet. So it's quite a distance to get from the parking down to that path and then back up again. So just because, you know, this is trying to serve the communities that maybe have more difficulty with mobility, that was not really seen as an option. So that's kind of how the path ended up where we are proposing it. Again, we tried avoiding all trees, and then, like Scott had mentioned, our plan ultimately is to, with the project, include planting trees in well-thought-out locations to add trees back in, but also, you know, create shade around the park, and also, you know, places to, you know, have picnic tables and to create shade around the site. So ultimately, we plan on using the city's annual tree bid to purchase some trees, hopefully with some donated funds to add trees throughout the site and get a lot more tree cover in the area. So that, I guess, is pretty much what I have. There were other questions regarding the design. Scott, I don't know if you wanted to go through those, or is this more about the path?
Well, I think it really is the idea of the reason why we selected the location for the path, and certainly as a byproduct, one of the trees needs to be removed. So I think that's really the gist of the discussion and that kind of thing. So
I have a question or two here. I was at the site, and I understand the reason for the path going to that corner of the splash pad. But the question I have is, why would we need a 10-foot wide path there? Could it be made 5 feet wide? It's not something that's going to be plowed, because no one's going to go up to the splash pad during the winter. And if so, would that not give us enough room to swing around the tree, preserve it, And if we must chance it by going into the root drip zone more than what is the perfect approach, keep the path generally where it is, a little narrower, and make an attempt to save the tree.
Yeah, that was also an alternate that we looked at, was again to go through those two northernmost trees, you know, to get the path through that location. Even with a 5-foot path, we weren't able to fit it in.
I mean, I'm not saying between any trees, I'm saying swing around, keep the tree that is to be removed, and go to the north of it with a 5-foot wide path.
Yeah, so can you go to sheet 3 again? The grading isn't going to show up super great, but if you look in the lower right-hand corner there, that stormwater basin is in that location, and the slope is dropping off to go down to that stormwater basin. So that location is roughly 3 feet lower than what our splash pad and the inclusive park are. So there's a grade differential there. So pushing it would ultimately, again, push that grade out and fill in the stormwater basin, which we can't. We can't lose the stormwater treatment that was designed for the site and put there. In addition, the 5-foot path, again, this being an inclusive park, we're trying to make something very accessible. You can imagine, I was just out there recently, you know, people pushing kids in strollers. We expect that this will have a lot of users going back and forth, get all sweaty and hot, and then go to the splash pad and cool off, going back and forth. So we want to make sure that there's enough room for two-way traffic of people in wheelchairs, people with strollers. So that's why the 10-foot was selected instead of the 5-foot.
But, true, I understand what you just said. A 6-foot path wouldn't accommodate two-way traffic?
Again, even with a 5-foot path with the grading, I don't know that we can fit it north of that. I certainly can look at that location and see if that's possible. As it is, if you look at our grading plan, you can see the grades on the right-hand side. We're grading right to the stormwater facility. That's essentially as close as we can get without making those slopes steeper. So we would take, I believe those slopes are a 4-to-1 slope. They would have to probably be 2-to-1 or steeper, which isn't a maintainable slope, and then it's also a safety concern to have that next to the path as well. So I can tell you right now, it would not be an optimal layout even if it does work, and it's highly unlikely that we could even still make that work. If you look on the right-hand side of the tree to the limits of our work, there's actually less space there than there is between the trees. In addition, you would then be tying into the corner of the splash pad, and again, grades, the corner of the splash pad is built up and it's sloping away. So coming into the corner of the splash pad, we have another direction of grade that we would need to fill, again, to get those flat ADA slopes to meet the American with Disability Act. So the corner gets really tight in there from the splash pad as well.
Right, but the drawing as you show it isn't coming to the corner, it's coming to south of the corner of the splash pad?
Right.
Because what I was suggesting or seeing was you would still connect whatever width path at that location. I'm not suggesting that the endpoint of the path be moved at all. I'm just suggesting a narrower path and where it gets to the tree, swinging around it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Again, the splash pad is high and it's sloping down as you go to the west. So running the path parallel to the splash pad, your slope going away from the splash pad becomes your cross slope of your path. And the limit on the ADA slope of that is 2%. So we can't catch grade and meet the ADA slopes coming sideways with a path off of the splash pad.
Is the tree too big to be moved?
It's very close, I think. I know when we spaded it originally, they had a pretty large spade for moving that tree.
Right.
But maybe
Yeah, I
that's-
haven't any idea of the expense. I'm just asking
Yeah,
the question.
I believe when we originally spaded all of those trees. I want to say it was about $1,000 to do
oh.
all of those.
May have been a little bit more than that.
Yeah,
I think,
But how long ago was
that
it?
was a long time. I think that was 2013.
And they were really pushing the caliper
Right.
to
And-
successfully transplant them then.
And mobilization is what gets you too. It's
Yeah.
just about the
Right.
same price to spade 6 trees as it is to do.
right, yeah, I know it's not a realistic option really financially. Just the cost of trees has gone up so much in the last year itself, so. Well, those, I think are my questions, and there's more here. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, a few things. One thing that I would ask for, that the next time, next meeting or whenever that we discuss this, if we could have another map there that's a larger area so that we can see how the other elements around here orient with this, because I look at these dead-end paths and I'm trying to figure out where they go, what they connect to. I just can't tell.
Sure.
I did go there this afternoon to look at this, so I think I know where this goes, but that would be helpful.
Sure.
About the tree, one thing that I'm thinking of is the option being proposed right now is cut it down. It probably, I would think, is more expensive to move a tree a long distance from wherever it came to here. And I would think it would be worthwhile to try getting the tree out of the ground and move it 20 feet to a better location right here and put it in the ground. Because the trade-off is either cut it off and kill it or give it a chance 20 feet away. I would really like to see the tree saved as well. I think I've heard from other people who have gone to the splash pad, and there's not a lot of shade there. And in the middle of summer, shade is valuable.
Right.
So anything we can do to save it, even moving it or so, I think would be worthwhile. What about it as, I think I know what you're talking about, as that path goes to the north, and then there's a ditch of some sort there. Is there any help of having a low retaining wall that the path can be over, and then there's a retaining wall, so it's not just grade down into that ditch, which I think is what you're saying will start to fill in the ditch, but a short retaining wall, and then maybe like a split rail fence or something along the side of that to give you the instant up in the air a couple feet fence so nobody falls over the edge. Is that helpful? And narrower too, like Sue was saying.
Yeah, it certainly helps with grade, but you're going to spend $5,000 on a retaining wall very quickly. And I would rather buy, 10 trees and plant them in the site than build a retaining wall next to the path. I like your idea about seeing if the tree can be spaded. I think maybe the Parks Department could see if that's feasible and how much it would cost. Because I think, like you said, the shade is at a premium, and it, would be nice to preserve, and maybe a fundraiser, maybe a user would say, hey, I would love to donate if we can move that tree on site here. So I like the idea of trying to preserve it if we can. It is getting pretty big, though,
Yeah.
so it would take a very large tree spade.
That's an oak, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's 3 of the trees are ash trees, so I'm assuming they're being treated?
I don't know about that, no. The 3 of the 6 here?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
Those aren't ash, no.
I think one is a linden, and I think there's several oaks. in
Yeah,
there.
3 or 4 oaks.
There's no,
None of them are ash, no,
oh, okay,
that I know of.
all right. Good. Julia, you wanted to speak?
Yes, so thank you. Thank you, Cory, for coming and explaining this. So I want to remind the rest of the Parks Commission member that this, we have been working with this park for 3 years already, okay? So, and I understand that I don't want to remove any tree, but I don't want a tree to delay the construction of the park. And second is we need to be careful about cost, because this is a private and public partnership, and most of the money, 50% of the funding is coming from private donors. So every time that we incorporate more cost, it's like I am part of the team that we work fundraising the fund. We need to fundraise more money. So this is what I said. We have to understand that this is not a project funded completely by the city. It's only 50%, and the rest is coming from private donors that we need to fundraise the money. So we have to be conscious about the cost too. So and also we need to be conscious that this is an inclusive playground, and we need to we need to follow the guidelines that Corey mentioned already about the American Disability Act. So, you know what I mean? So this is what I want for all of you to be conscious about that. And yes, I don't want a tree to be removed, but I don't want this park that we have been working very hard for the last 3 years to be more delayed because of a tree. You know what I mean? So I understand. I understand your position because you are the tree lover in our team, and you know I respect that. But I think if we can find that option that you mentioned, Patrick, and determine that the city is going to pay for the removal and it's not going to come from the budget that we already have for the inclusive playground, will be great. You know, if we can follow. But we need to be conscious of if we start removing or moving stuff that is affecting the cost of the budget of the project, that is very limited right now.
You know, and if I might just make a general thought that certainly I think with Corey coming in, I'd rest assured that staff and the engineering department, we did everything we possibly could to try and save all of those trees. But, you know, at the end of the day, there's times where it just doesn't work out. And, you know, we don't want to remove trees, but the logistics of it is kind of the thing that helped us make the decision. And at the end of the day, we'll end up planting, you know, additional trees and those kinds of things. And I hear the passion, and I'm the same. But at the end of the day, you know, it's cost and money and things like that. And rest assured, we did everything that we could to try and save all of those trees. But the site just didn't allow us to.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Two thoughts as I'm thinking this through. As far as a retaining wall, if you could think about what is the absolute cheapest way to come up with one, and it might very much might not be blocks built up, but maybe just, and if we did go to especially like a 5-foot wide sidewalk or something, just have the cement come over, the cement goes down into the ground, so it's just a cement face on there that is only visible from the parking lot anyway. It might make it cheaper. And pass.
Well,
You want to fundraise for the retaining wall?
well, and to be clear, it's you know, at the end of the day, we're gonna replace the tree that we do remove with lots of other trees, and it just doesn't, you know, I don't know how else to explain it, but.
Well, everything I'm hearing makes sense. I had not seen the grading diagram or noticed it before, and I think that's much more helpful. You know, someone without an engineering background standing in a park this morning, I could see how my idea would work. I don't at all want to appear callous to suggest that something narrower than 10 feet is the best way to go. But I worked for 21 years in a nursing home and pushed wheelchairs everywhere all the time. So I was, in my mind, doing the calculation of 5 or 6 feet and knowing that it's doable. So that was my reason for suggesting it, especially because people are generally courteous. If they see someone coming in a wheelchair and they know that they can step aside or at least stop and give that other person room, they always do. And, you know, for as much, there'll be a lot of traffic on there, but it's not going to be all day, every day, wheelchairs in 2 directions. So, you know, the main point is the grading is making every other suggestion other than a retaining wall impossible, is what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Patrick?
Second part, Scott, is there anything else that you see in the future of moving any other trees? Because probably mobilization of getting, we don't own a tree spade, do we?
No, we do not.
Okay, so getting a tree spade to come to move some other trees somewhere else and then stop in here and shift this thing over, is that any possibility between now and whenever this construction is in play?
To wrap up the discussion, I guess my thought would be that we're, going to go as we've got planned here, and staff will see if there isn't a possibility to spade the oak tree and get it transplanted. But short of that, the tree unfortunately is going to be removed in order to keep the project going. So I don't, just to be clear, that's really kind of the direction. And certainly we can take a look at spading it if you're interested in that. But beyond that, we really are kind of stuck with the way that we're proposing here.
Do you know if any other trees are already planned to be moved around?
Not that I'm aware of, and to spade an oak in the middle of summer,
Yeah.
I think how successful that'll be, and it's not, it's not going to be like $200 or anything like that. It's going to be be maybe a couple $1,000s to try and spade it, and then
It may
the
fail.
success would, the success is not likely, so at times we just have to do what we got to do, right?
Yeah.
Corey, do you have a deadline of when this tree gets in your way?
Well, the park is trying to, we're trying to get that constructed yet this year. So, yeah, literally probably by September it would have to be moved. One thing I'd like to say to tie onto what Scott said is, you have to look at cost benefit too. Like, would you rather have 5 smaller trees planted versus 1 big tree transplanted that may not live? There's kind of a cost benefit there of, what would be the better decision in the long run. We transplanted that one, like I mentioned, in, 2013 or so. So, we'll lose, some years of growth on that tree. But, if you can replace it with multiple, more trees, give it a few years and we'll be back to where this one was at.
I look at that maybe kind of more equal than others because a large tree is, and oaks grow slow, and a large oak is more equal to 5 little trees.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, did you have a remark you wanted?
I was just going to ask, so this is under communication, but are you looking for a specific?
Well, I'm just trying to gather consensus that you're okay, and to be clear that what we'll do is we'll see if we can transplant it or spade it out, but other than that, we'll have to remove it. So I guess that's if there's a consensus with that, so everybody's on the same page, I guess that's what I'd like.
Go ahead.
And no action or anything like that.
But if we can transplant this plant, the money shouldn't come from our budget.
Well,
It had to come from your budget.
we'll see the potential success of it, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Okay, so I think everyone's understanding there's no way to save the tree. I appreciate the time that's been offered here and the second thoughts and discussion. Anything else anyone else wants to add?
I just have a couple questions. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes.
So with regards to the tree, I mean, it seems clear that it's probably not something that we would be able to save. Is it something that, somebody had mentioned a larger part of fundraising, something that, since it's a nice mature tree, something that could be sold maybe to an arborist or somebody else that may be able to, add money to the budget for this, then the tree could be saved, just maybe elsewhere. That's my first question. The second one is, with regards to the talking of the 5 or 6 foot versus the 10 foot, aside from the ability to have more people going back and forth, is there a problem with having a smaller path with regards to that water issue, or the grading?
So, you know, a smaller path obviously would be less impervious area. So from a stormwater perspective, you know, I think it's always good to minimize impervious. Again, I think with the use of this as an inclusive park, you know, there's a good reason to have it wider. In addition to people going back and forth, I'm sure kids are gonna park their bikes on it and you know, so I think that many areas we have in the city that have wider paths, and I think this one is every bit, if not more justified than other areas throughout the city for having a wider path. You know, from a user perspective, asphalt is smoother and nicer to ride on than concrete. If we do go smaller than 10 feet, you're likely going to have difficulty getting an asphalt paver to pave something narrower, so it would likely need to be concrete then, which again isn't quite as user-friendly as asphalt, and you have all of the joints that you gotta go over. Not a big deal, that happens everywhere, but you know, that's just another factor, I guess.
I'm just curious what the savings would be, the difference in cost between a 10-foot versus, say, a 6-foot, which I agree with Susan. I mean, I feel like 6 feet is, you know, plenty wide for people with wheelchairs and, you know, kids with bikes and all of that. I also agree with her that I think people do tend to be courteous when they see somebody coming with a wheelchair. So I'm just curious what the cost savings would be with the 6 versus the 10.
From a cost perspective, it probably would be more expensive because, as I mentioned, you'd switch to concrete, which is more per square foot than asphalt is. So I think from a cost perspective, even though it's wider, the cost per square foot is lower. So I think that I could run calculations on it, but I would guess that your 6-foot concrete would be as much or more than what a 10-foot asphalt path would be.
But then long-term, does not concrete last longer than asphalt?
There's, I guess, you know, ultimately, usually there's less maintenance with concrete. Longevity, you know, both of them, if maintained, can last, you know, 30, 40 years.
Okay, Julia?
Again, this is, if we have concrete, we're going to have joints. Remember, we're going to have kids maybe with cane, with other motor or physical disability. Remember, this is an inclusive playground. So we had to be cognizant of all of these factors too.
Any other questions? Patrick?
I'm in favor of narrower, so there's less pavement and heat absorption, which means more grass.
Okay. Still, no matter how this pie is sliced up, the tree has to go. So that's our bottom line for this discussion, and the planners of the park that have been intimately involved for longer do want to stick with the 10-foot asphalt that they've talked about over time, in part because of making room for two-way traffic and not having the pavement joints that are in concrete. So I have no argument with that at this point, personally. And so, but noted, Patrick, that it's true, narrower paths in general, you have more green, but here it's just, there's other factors in play. We're set? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone,
Sure,
for
thanks for
pushing this
coming.
up on the agenda. I appreciate that.
Okay. Item 5B is ordinance 2021-0-11, Plan Commission Resolution PCR 01-21 Fahey presentation. And this is David Fahey representing.
And maybe, if I could maybe just kind of introduce this. This is a city comp plan, a minor amendment, and typically, these amendments would not, at this point, come to the Park Commission. I did get a late memo to you from the city planner, Sonia, regarding the overall process of these comp plan updates. So at the end of the day, we'll certainly try to get a motion to approve the comp plan update, but where the Park Commission will be involved is when, if this is approved, then Mr. Fahey will come back with his plat, his preliminary plat for the development, and that's where the Parks Commission will really weigh in on park locations and park improvement fees and those kinds of things. So just to kind of set the stage that, like I say, this is typically not referred to the Park Commission at this time, but certainly Mr. Fahey is here to kind of let us know what's going on and maybe a prelude to another future meeting when he comes in with his proposed park plan, once this all gets approved, so.
You know, someone asked me how many meetings I've been to, and I've been going to meetings since I was a teenager. A little history about me and my family. My great-grandmother was born in Fitchburg on Irish Lane in 1854. So we know that it was there. I live in my ancestry house, which we know was there in 1873. So, and my dad milked cows his whole life on Irish Lane. So this is part of the farm that's been in the family for many years, many generations. We are a 150-year farm, and I will get my son to 180, and then he'll have to take the last 20 to get us to 200. But he's only 10, so it's too much pressure for a 10-year-old. So with that introduction, like I said, I'm a lifetime resident of Fitchburg, and I grew up here, and I grew up on this land too. So, and I still farm 160 acres of crops today. I'll move into the McGaw Neighborhood Plan. The McGaw Neighborhood Plan was approved and adopted in 2009, which is the plan that Scott is showing. We are in the middle. We have 60 acres that was developed and included along McGaw Park that is in its final phases right now. And so we're just continuing that process. We can go to the next one. This is a blow-up of the school site. I think if we go to the next one, it's more. So the amendment is changing two areas. We have St. Ambrose as a school partner, and they plan to build on 5 acres. They are classical educational, 6th through 12th grade, with currently 115, 120 students. And they have a layout that will go on the 5-acre institutional site. So we are requesting zoning to move the area that was formerly institution into single family. And then the area which borders McGaw Park on the, I will call it the inward, the way building side of the screen, is reducing that from 10 DU to 5 DU. And that's basically what the amendment is doing. And then we will have a 228 unit multifamily building on the left side of the screen. And then the rest will be single family. Single family right now is penciled at 260, and those numbers are based on our sewer capacity. So there are some limitations on us to how much we can do. So that's where those numbers come from. And we also have to meet the 10 DU on the multifamily site. So the numbers are not just arbitrarily set, they are calculated in our sewer capacity and the layout and balancing. So that was that. The next one is the preliminary. This will get refined, but that is the multifamily site with connecting to the existing path, which is coming off Noble Drive on the upper part of the screen. So, and then the last, I just had a few numbers. We are going from the McGaw plan was 10, institution to 5. The multifamily, we are reducing to 228 units, and the single family is 260. Like I said, those numbers are based on our sewer capacity, so we are trying to balance our growth. So I guess that's the quick and 10-minute version. I could make it 20 if you want, but.
Do we have any questions, comments?
Hi there. Can you put back the, I think, number 4? So where is the proposed school there to the,
Go to actually number 3.
yeah, but there in the,
Yeah,
yeah, but I don't,
yeah, so the school, the number 4 would be on the left side, the 12 acres, it says,
where it's gonna be there?
oh, no, go back to the, so
Yeah, no, I,
up in the left corner is the multifamily site, and the school is directly,
But which are the street name? Because I,
the roundabout is on the top part. Noble Drive is, continues to the left, and the roundabout is right where the arrow is, the existing roundabout off Fahey Glen and Nobel. So the school is going to be in that roundabout, finishing out the corner.
oh, okay. Yeah, I have an idea now, okay. So my question to you is, have you have a neighborhood meeting so the neighbor know about this school coming? Because,
We are planning to, I mean, we will have multiple meetings as we go, and we are having the first one in 2 weeks. We will send it out to our list that was provided by staff.
okay.
sure, go ahead.
So, in the, because it's a 10-acre lot that is gonna use only 5 for the school, so what is gonna be the zoning for the other 5?
Single family, 5 DU, or whatever the McGaw,
Okay,
basically single family. It has a different name in the McGaw plan.
yeah, I know. And then I know the other amendment is a minor amendment is to go from R1 to R2. My question is, are we gonna recuperate the density that we are losing?
We are limited by our density based on our sewer capacity.
My question was, we, the city, are recuperating the density that we are losing for doing this?
Not on,
Okay,
we're not really going that much down from, in the numbers. We're still fairly, by the time you look at the net versus what we can build.
Yeah, it looks like it was, if I'm looking at this one graph, 260 DU originally, and then for multifamily, and then 228 DU after
Yes.
the changes are made. And that's driven by calculations that
Yes,
we all have no control over.
yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
no for now.
Patrick?
One question off the top here. If this is not approved, then the 10 acres of institutional stays 10 acres institutional to wait for something else to come along to use it?
Yes, but I don't know if it would go forward because 2009, the institution was put out there, and it's 2021. We haven't had anyone knocking on our door for another institution. Oregon built a new school in Terra Vesa,
Right.
and they have plans for their middle school. And if you look at we are in the Oregon School District. If you follow the dotted line on the left side, that is the dividing line between Oregon and Madison School District. If you want history in the Oregon School District, in 1960, they went from the one-room school to the 3 school systems, Oregon, Madison, and Verona. And my grandfather and father chose to go to Oregon. We had the capability of choosing either one. So Oregon will not be building, and is not looking for a site. And there's an economic equation to this. And so if it's not approved, I don't know if the school will come or not. I can't answer that question.
Well, I was an appointed member of the McGaw Park Neighborhood Steering Committee that created this plan. This was a while ago, but I'm remembering various things. And I believe that institutional was thought of as a school or maybe some kind of government thing.
I don't envision anything else. And there's also a cost for the roads to surround that 5-acre site, and we will have to weigh that if we have to let we can't skip it. It's not on the edge of our plan. We have to put sewer pipe, water, and all the way around that site right now. And that's a very expensive cost today. You were just talking about cost of paths.
Yeah, and I did watch the Plan Commission where this was discussed as well, and I heard what you said about and the current arrangement, you're maxing out your number of city water connections and city sewer connections.
Yes.
So you're adjusting so you don't go over the maximum that the capacity can hold for what is already built in the ground, right?
Yes.
Okay. For this yellow single-family area that we're looking at here, there's no more streets that would have to go in order to access more residential lots in here, is there? I mean, we don't have any layout, maybe you don't either, about how the lots would be configured around in this here yellow area?
Well, it depends on how, we need the zoning approval to determine how many acres, so we have to keep the steps going, and this is a step, and once we have the approval, and hopefully, we get approval on July 27th, is that Tuesday, or is it 28th? I don't know off the top of my head right now. Once we get approval, then we will come back, like Scott said, with a preliminary layout and design that includes additional streets. But it depends on how the layout depends on the zoning approval. We can't move forward without the zoning approval and spend the time, energy, and money in figuring it out at this point. I have no idea how the streets will be laid out in the yellow area. I'm not seeing a preliminary plot plan yet.
But is it generally the idea that more streets would be needed
Yeah, we will need more
to
streets.
get to the lots?
Yes.
Okay. I've seen how the construction is going for all of the houses that are in there, and what has been built along the way right here is all in R2 area, correct?
No, it's R1.
Pardon?
We are most of the combination, we did qualify with our existing plan in getting it to meet the requirements. I think so we met the R2 requirements for our existing phase.
Okay.
And we will meet the requirements within, but we are also limited by the number of sewer capacity that we can
Right.
build.
Yeah,
That's where the numbers come in.
What I'm getting to, and I had to review the plan myself to understand this, the R2 was a 10 dwelling unit per acre minimum, but it was an average over all of the R2. So in other words, the 3 large apartment buildings, and I think there's some 8plexes or so in there, that together with the single-family homes that are built
And that is our R2.
at the R2
Yes,
minimum.
and we will meet on the single family, we will meet the 5, and on the multifamily, we will meet the 10.
Right, the buildings that you just showed it on the, I don't know, next slide, that's in the R1 area, so those higher density there, averaging with single-family homes in other parts of R1, that again meets the 5 dwelling units minimum for R1. That's the idea, right?
No, we will meet them individually this time. We will meet the R2 on the R2, and we'll meet the 5 on the R1.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so in the R2 area that has been built already, it looks like generally the single-family homes are on quarter-acre lots?
There's some are smaller than, there's smaller lots.
Slightly smaller than quarter acre?
Yes.
Okay, so how will
I do not know. We need to start doing the planning after we get the zoning approval.
okay, maybe you can't answer this, but I'm wondering if this R2 area, or R1 area of what you're talking about for the yellow area would pretty much look the same because it's a balance of higher density here and single-family there on approximately the same lots, same size lots as the R2?
They will probably be smaller lots than our current R1.
Smaller?
There will be some smaller, and there probably will be some the same size. To get 260 on the number, including all the layouts and the stormwater and the sewer, it will probably be some smaller. We haven't done the calculations yet.
Okay.
Okay.
A question more for Scott. As you see these numbers, if the numbers of dwelling units are being reduced, does that mean that there's a credit or some refund or something back to the development for less dwelling units?
Well, and again, I think that was one of the list of questions that you
Yeah.
provided, and then the city planner did provide those answers. Well, I guess I'd referred to those answers, and everyone received those.
Where is that?
Was in an email that I sent later this afternoon, so everybody
I-
has the answers to those questions.
I didn't see that. I've been out. What is the answer?
I'd have to refer to that. I would suspect that there won't be a credit, that each plat will start out, at a starting point, so whenever the new plat comes in, that'll be, accordingly, with square footage and parkland dedication and such, there won't be any credit, if you would. It's all for new stuff.
I'm also remembering that when the pickleball courts were proposed a couple of council meetings ago, a month or so ago, that you had reported to the council that this development was 12 acres deficient as it stands right now in parkland dedication, and does that sound right? That was at a council meeting.
Yeah, the past development was 12 acres deficient, so we collected the fee in lieu of parkland dedication.
Right, the
But
60
this will be a whole new development. If it's approved, the plat will come in, and then we'll have the number of units and take the calculation of the parkland that is being considered for donation. And I think we're getting way ahead of the game at this point.
Is this being looked at as a whole separate development
Absolutely,
subdivision?
exactly.
Yeah. So really, it's true, we've moved way beyond, but Julio, you had a question as well.
My last question is why we are moving from R1, no, it's R1 to R2?
R2 to R1.
R2 to R1, why do you need that?
Because we have the sewer limitations, basically. And also balancing our multifamily with our single family to meet the city's balanced act of renters versus owners.
So where is that balance act?
It was a request.
It was a request. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? I see Sarah.
I'm sorry, I didn't have a question. I was just gonna say I'd make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-011 and plan commission.
I don't think that we need, can we approve this in Park Commission? Yeah?
It's an action
Okay.
item.
Sorry.
Move it.
PCR 0121.
Is there a second? Chris is the second. Those in favor?
Do we have two things that we approve on this?
No, it's only one.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's two items.
Resolution and the ordinance?
They were packaged together, but
Yeah.
these look like an ordinance.
We are,
and a
we are
resolution.
voting for the same thing, the whole thing together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's clarified. So those in favor?
I wish to make an amendment to this
Go ahead.
and see how far I get with this. I would like to add a condition onto approving this, that since this releases 5 acres out of the institutional for more development and a number of lots, and based on the other areas, it's probably 4 single-family homes per acre, another 20 homes. I wish to add a condition that the development returns 1 specific acre to the Parks Department, which is an acre that should not have been sold at the 65,000 and should have stayed park. And I was on the steering committee, so I have some background for what I'm talking about, which I can explain if there's any second.
Oh, okay, can I make a?
This is 2 separate projects. Our
Yeah.
existing project
What I
has no
wanna-
effect. I treat it as a separate
I
project.
think that, you know,
And the ownership and the development process is completely separate.
I think we shouldn't, you know, this is not topic of discussion because it's not, you know, when first of all, usually this type of resolution, they don't come to parks. They only go to plan and council. So it came to us only for discussion. I don't think that we need to vote. It's only for discussion. I don't know, Scott, that one was my understanding,
You can certainly
okay?
do as you like, but it was referred to us for action, so
Okay,
the Park
okay.
Commission can decide what they'd
But
like
I
to do.
don't think that we need to start making, because this is an amendment to the comp plan, we cannot, there was a time to add amendment, there was an open period there was a public hearing where, you can, so I think the time expires, so we cannot make amendment to
Well,
this.
I could-
And Mr. Fahey, just so you'll repeat what you said, this is different developer groups per se. It's not necessarily, this isn't the same exact entity as developed the original portion. Is that what I heard you say?
It's a completely different contract in negotiations. It's treated separately.
Yeah,
And to clarify, the area that Patrick is referring to has already been plotted, approved, and halfway developed, so that's not, theoretically, I can't change. There's already commitments that we've already made and contract obligations.
okay. And I was hearing Julia say we've missed, this concept would have been required to have been brought up during public hearing time. Go ahead, Patrick.
That's one thing that I was wondering about, because on Resolution PCR 0121, the fourth whereas says, the City of Fitchburg has held at least one public hearing on this resolution in compliance with the City of Fitchburg Comprehensive Plan. But either you or Julia just asked if there was a public.
There's a neighborhood meeting. The public meeting was the Plan Commission. And there is a public meeting coming also on the city. There is also a public meeting coming.
So the difference in the city.
I don't know the whole
versus
comp plan process,
neighborhood,
but
yeah.
I know there's when we go before council, I think there's a comment period.
Okay. And Heidi Reynolds has a question or comment?
Well, just a question, because I was not involved in this in the beginning. Is any of that area devoted to potential green space? I think that may be what Patrick was getting at, and maybe not, but I'd be curious about it.
No.
Did you hear the answer?
I did, yes, thank
Okay.
you, sorry.
I didn't really get the question.
All right.
I mean, I really have reservation accepting Patrick's amendment.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's contract obligations, and I would like to have a city interpretation too.
Yeah, I'm really hearing that it's not something we can do, Patrick, is that,
Okay, I'm making an attempt. I don't know if that kind of amendment is appropriate at a later time. I did check that the particular acre and the 4 lots that I have in mind are still owned by the developer. So, I mean,
There's lots of behind-the-scenes stuff too.
I mean, are we to the point where we'll see if you get a second?
yeah,
And then if it fails?
there's a motion. Is there a second?
Could I just clarify what the motion is, the original one, that this should be rezoned?
If I could clarify,
Go ahead, Scott.
there was an existing Fahey Fields development, which the parkland dedication was already accounted for, the fee in lieu of dedication was accounted for, and then the single-family lots that Patrick is interested in trying to get for the city that's off the table. That's a independent development that was the first stage. This is a second stage, so what Patrick, if I'm understanding him correctly, is he wants to go back to the first development and try to negotiate, but what David Fahey is saying is he's got commitments to those lots already, so he can't do it anyway, so at the end of the day, Fahey Fields Phase 1 is already done, the money is taken, the land is taken, this is the first step of the second phase, and the Park Commission will deal with this independently and not take into consideration anything that happened with the first phase, if you would.
Okay, thank you. So we had your proposal for a condition which we are learning we cannot do. And so Patrick,
I look at this as it's owned by the same developer, and if you don't ask, it won't happen, and if parties were agreeable, it could happen, so that's why I brought it up. If nobody asks, it certainly won't happen, so I'm asking.
and that is true and appreciated. We did get the answers and Scott clarifying where we're at. And so we have a motion and a second to approve 5B as was stated. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sure I will be back. Scott has my email.
Okay, so 5C is, we have Wade Thompson here to speak about potential Terra Vista Ag Park.
Yes, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so hopefully folks can see my a memo up there, and this was in the packet, so again, hopefully folks have had a chance to read through this. But what I'm here to talk about tonight is essentially this concept of what we're going to call an ag park, potentially at the Terra Vista property out in the new Terra Vista development. We also have the developer here tonight, Phil Steen, who I'm sure folks know. So Phil will probably chime in too as needed on this idea. But basically, you know, just starting off big picture, when we're talking ag park, we're really talking about a unique park space devoted to essentially agricultural uses, whether it be community gardens or what we'll call market gardens, and we'll talk more about what that means. But again, it's really a public space that's specifically designed for agriculture. So I think the commission remembers a few months back, I did provide kind of an overview of community gardens in our park system. We started that about 3 years ago. That is a form of agriculture. We started at Swan Creek Park. We're now at 4 different parks throughout our park system. Generally speaking, the gardens have been a great addition to our park system. People are knocking on our doors, you know, putting in applications to garden at our parks, and a few issues have come up, but overall, again, I think it's been really good for our park system. So when we did give a report on gardens and parks a few months back, we did talk about the benefits of gardening and agriculture in public spaces. Generally, and I'm just going to touch on those again. This idea of passive, low impact outdoor recreational opportunities, enhancing what we call our local food system. So that's producing and consuming food in very close proximity. This idea of food security. You know, some folks need to grow to ensure that they have food to eat. So that's another benefit of gardens and parks. And then just this idea of getting folks into our parks to interact with this idea of creating social cohesion and again, interaction via increased use of our public lands. So again, currently gardens on 4 properties in our system. Those parks are actually scattered throughout the city. So it is a nice geographic distribution of gardens and parks. And again, as I mentioned, we are seeing a lot of demand. We have waiting lists for our Swan Creek Park, and I'm sure the 3 new gardens that came online this year will also see waiting lists as we continue those throughout the coming years. So that's, again, some background on this idea of agriculture, generally speaking, in city parks. In terms of enabling policy for both the gardens and this kind of one next step of an ag park, we do have various enabling policy that, again, allows us to explore these kinds of ideas. So our parks plan, which we'll talk about later tonight, There's a specific action item in there that speaks to this idea of promoting an ag park within our park system. Our agricultural plan, which was adopted in 2017, again, we've got 11,000 acres of ag land in our city. So we have a specific plan for agriculture in our city. That plan also speaks to this idea of an ag park in the city. And then again, yeah, so just, various documents. We did have a resolution that specifically allowed for gardens and parks. So again, a lot of enabling policy to really explore this idea. And then for folks that have been around the city for a while, there was a concept put forth about, I'd say 10 to 15 years ago, called Moraine Edge Park, which was basically kind of this linear park, I would say just south of Lacey Road, kind of running east to west, dividing the urban Fitchburg from the rural. That park has not yet been implemented, but if you look back on that concept, it does really speak again to this idea of kind of this ag park concept. And then just one last point here, kind of anecdotally, but the lands we're talking about, again, a 16-acre parcel in the Terra Vesta development, has historically been farmed. For years it was cash crops, big large-scale farming. More recently, it was farmed by Hmong farmers, growing small-scale produce for both their consumption as well as sale at local markets. And the last piece of the puzzle here in terms of policy is when the plat was created for Terra Vesta and the park spaces were identified, this property was designated for what we'll call community gardens. There wasn't a whole lot of detail on what that meant. But again, we think that is another piece of the puzzle here that really promotes this idea of exploring an ag park on the Terra Vesta property. So with that in mind, let's talk about what that concept is. So I'm going to just talk first about some specific uses as it relates to the concept, and then we'll look at a map and see how those lay out on the landscape. So a phase one would really be, and maybe I'll just move down to the map right now, just to kind of orientate people. So just to, again, to orientate, we've got, and Scott, if you could help me out with the roads, is that Goodland Park to the south?
Yep, correct.
And then is this Larson?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep, so basically we're talking the southeast corner of the Terra Vesta development. Again, this is the 16-acre parcel you see in front of you. I kind of look at it in terms of two phases, and it may not show up really well on your screen, but phase one is kind of this black hatched area. Phase two is kind of this blue hatched area. So phase one is basically the south part of the property. Phase two is the northern part. So phase one, I think, really follows that idea of community parks in our gardens, but takes it one step further. So right now, our current park gardens are probably, let's say, half an acre, maybe 30, 35 plots. This would be a couple acres. The area, this brown circle right in here, we're talking maybe 1 to 2 acres. And if we develop that for community gardens, that could accommodate probably 100 plus community garden plots. Moving to the west, we've got another 2 or 3 acres. And this would actually be an area for what we call agricultural education and interpretive programming. So just think about potential groups in the region that are based, that kind of promote local food systems, small scale agriculture. Potentially they could get out here and do programming in the summer, maybe getting some kids from our underserved neighborhoods out here to learn about growing food and gardening and those sorts of things. So that's really this, again, kind of a space that could be programmed for nonprofit, education or interpretation. And then the black circles are essentially facilities. So the black circle right here would just be a parking lot, right off Goodland Park Road. This smaller circle here would be kind of a shelter, gathering place, could host little tiny festivals or events, markets, those sorts of things. And then up here is, again, kind of a take on community gardens. Traditionally gardens and parks consist of just tilling up the land and growing crops there. What we're proposing here and what you'll see elsewhere on small scale agricultural enterprises is what's called a hoop house. So basically think about a really low impact greenhouse, but this would allow folks to grow inside. Again, just offering another opportunity for gardening in our park spaces. And then just to make sure, we do a good job with creating a nice aesthetic out there. The green areas represent just landscaping. It could be prairie, could be nice tree plantings, but just something that really ties into that theme of agriculture and a nice natural type park. And then kind of the gray you see here is basically just a real generalized trail system. So again, up to the northwest, that's where we have a lot of folks. The folks will be living up there, pretty high density. So we'll connect the residential area to our park with a proposed trail system, and then just having kind of a ring around the gardens as well. So that's a phase one. Again, assuming we get some park commission interest in proceeding with this concept, that would be planned for in the next couple of years. Now, phase two is again to the north. I don't think we know exactly what would happen up there yet, but some ideas we've thrown around is what we'll call market gardens. And basically market gardens are when people are growing for a profit. So still small scale agriculture, still kind of garden level scale, but folks are basically growing to sell at markets or to sell to local restaurants. Now, I do want to point out that Dane County in their park system is doing this. So there is precedent in the region for these kinds of things to happen on public park space. Now, this would be a completely new use for our park system. So there's a lot of legal issues we'd have to explore. At this point in time, we haven't got the go-ahead to proceed with this. There is some hurdles and some obstacles, but I just want to throw it out there that other folks, again, in the region are doing this. And if we truly follow this idea of a really comprehensive integrated ag park, a phase two with market gardens would be something that could be looked at in more detail. Now, just kind of wrapping up, I think the key thing here with this kind of property, again, it's a new idea. It's a niche park. It's designed for specific types of users. We think if we do proceed with this, it will draw from the community, but we also think it takes a level of management that city staff does not currently have as it relates to capacity and expertise. So we have been in general discussions with some groups in the region that manage gardens in City of Madison Park. So they have experience with managing these types of public properties. So we feel like if this idea is to move forward, we would need to enlist what we'll call a land manager or a property manager. And we would have to figure out a way to incentivize that manager on an annual basis. But that I think that is a key piece of the puzzle here. And I do want to point out there's precedent for that type of scenario as well. If folks think about our Nine Springs golf course, we basically lease that out to a private party. And we actually subsidize that party at about 50 to 60 grand a year. So again, I think there is precedent in our park system for this idea of a third-party land manager that we financially incentivize on an annual basis. So just kind of wrapping up, potential process. And again, this is all subject to Park Commission discussion and approval. But if the commission does want to move forward with exploring this concept, staff sees, kind of a 6 or 7 step process, public meetings to kind of kick this idea off. And then I think what we're thinking is we would publish an RFP, which stands for Request for Proposal, to essentially solicit proposals from folks that would help us plan this property. So basically folks that have expertise in these egg park type parks. And I think the idea is that person that helps us plan it, or that entity, would also then become the manager. So basically we're setting ourselves up for management in the planning phase. So we don't want to do a really cool plan and then have no one to manage it. So the idea is we put out one RFP, we get proposals for planning and management, we select one, and then we work with that entity to plan and ultimately have them manage the park space once implemented. So that kind of covers, I guess, step 2 Step three, again, would just be once we have that entity on board, the planner slash manager, we would hold additional, planning meetings. Then we would certainly prepare a master plan. Basically the concept I just showed you, but probably tweaked and very much refined. And then we would present those plans publicly, present it to this commission, assuming there's buy-in from the commission, ultimately to council, for a final approval as well. So with that all in mind, I think what we're really here tonight to do is to talk in more detail about this concept, to answer questions, take any comments, and then if there is a level of comfort from the commission on exploring this concept further, we would ask for that in a motion or an action to have staff, again, continue to explore this concept. So with that being said, I am done and can certainly take any questions or comments folks might have. And I know Phil is in the audience, so certainly if I do want to point out, I think this is really unique in terms of a partnership. A lot of times staff has ideas or private partners have ideas, and usually they're not the same ideas. In this case, this is an idea we've been thinking about for years. I think Phil is very keen on this concept as well. I certainly don't want to speak for him, but again, I think there's a real opportunity here for a unique public-private partnership that, again, could really create a park space that benefits our system and really attracts people to this space. So yeah, with that, I'm done.
Okay,
may-
go ahead, Scott.
So if I might, certainly I wanted to publicly thank Wade for his work on this. And if you, I draw you to page 48 of your packet, which is really the land use plan, if you would, for the Terra Vesa development. And we, at this point, we've created the park, but this is the next step in that planning process. And certainly we're fortunate that Wade, from the city staff, is able and willing to continue with the development of this park. So I guess I just wanted to call attention to the bigger picture, and then this is really, we're drilling down now on another piece of this development. So and I might add too that we'll talk about our operating budget in 2022. I do have an allocation in there for community garden development within our operating budget. So if all goes well, we'd have dollars to implement this in our operating budget if the budget's approved and all those kinds of things. So we've got two things that are kind of working together here.
Okay, and there are two people in the queue for questions already. Julia, followed by Heidi Reynolds.
Okay. Okay. I think this is a great idea. I have a couple of questions regarding. You mentioned, my question was how we're going to pay for this, because it's missing in the presentation. You mentioned that you're going to have some operation in the budget, but then in the plan here we see that there are some shelter, parking place, so it's going to be paid with some of the park dedication fee from the development.
Well,
Okay, that one is one question. Second is, will this generate any revenue? We are going to charge the people for the plot to be in the community garden, because you also mentioned that we are going to hire, have the same model that we have with the Nine Spring golf course, like an assisted manager. So if this community garden will generate any revenue to cover some of the expenses? So those are my questions for now.
The first, in regards to the payment strategies for the hard structures, if you would, there's another discussion item that Wade is going to talk to us about park classifications, and I'm thinking at the end of the day, this in itself is going to be a unique park within the park system. So I would see that it would be eligible for the fee in lieu of parkland dedication for its amenities. And in regards to the revenue, certainly, there's going to be some revenues to offset the operating expenses. But at the end of the day, similar to the Nine Springs Golf Course, that's an investment that the community makes to provide golf. And I would say the same thing for the splash pad and quality of life kinds of amenities. So they certainly would be, there would be some revenues that would be collected from the gardeners.
Okay, so I am not disputing the quality of life or anything. I am asking, real question, the important question about how we're going to fund all of this is great, but my question is how we are going to fund all of this, from where the money is going to come. And my other question that
Go ahead.
I can go is, so will this consider be a community park in the future? You know what I mean? That maybe is a question for Wade. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but I think, because, I think we'll talk later about, maybe doing a study to rethink some of the park designations. But yeah, I guess, big picture, this, I think if the city decides to proceed with this will be a unique park that, to Scott's point, will draw the community. So by that rationale alone, I think it could potentially be considered a quote-unquote community park. Again, I'm not saying it will be or it is, but I think it checks a lot of boxes. And to Scott's point, that would open up some funding avenues. But yeah, Julia, to your point, just kind of reverting back to the phases. Phase 1 is really about community gardens. We might get $1,000 a year in revenue from rental fees, but it's not going to cover the cost of a land manager. If we do a phase 2, which would entail market gardens, I believe, don't quote me on this, but the going rate for renting an acre of property, of farmland in Dane County is about $300. And I think we've got 10 acres up there. So just do the basic math, or 12 acres up there maybe. But yeah, point being is, I don't think revenues from this site, even in the best case, would ever cover, break even with paying off a land manager. So yeah, there would need to be some thought on how that happens.
Okay, and Heidi is waiting to ask.
So one of my questions was what Julia had just asked, but I do have two. Is this land that we already have, or would this require a land acquisition? And then the second thing is, how, and maybe I'm getting too far down the road here, but how would it be determined who gets to farm and profit from this, these scenarios?
Yeah, just to be clear, so farming for profit is not something we're proposing it. I mean, I'm not, that's a phase 2 way off concept. I'm not proposing that right now. I'm just saying that could be a potential opportunity for a phase 2. For phase 1, we're really just talking about community gardens as we currently have in our system. And then to your first question, this is a public park holding. We wouldn't have to buy it. It already is in our system.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. Chris, did you have a question? No, okay.
Can I address some of this? Is it possible?
Yes. Yes, Phil Sveem has some remarks he would like to make.
Thanks. So when Terra Vesta was created, this 20 acres that's located at the southeast corner of this neighborhood, by the way, do you have a map of the neighborhood itself? Can it be put up on the screen? Okay, well, that 20 acres that you've seen a map of in detail this evening has always been part of the plan to create urban farming. And from a very sustainable neighborhood, it seemed to deserve an urban farm of this size that would not necessarily be turned over to a farmer or a cultivator. It'd be turned over to nonprofit, as well as people in the community that wanted to rent spaces. So when we talk about market rate farming and developing and selling produce, it's not from a large-scale farming operation coming in and taking over 8 to 10 acres and developing produce to sell down to the Dane County Farmers Market. This is hopefully for most of this produce to be sold in the neighborhood and in the surrounding part of Fitchburg. It's large enough at that point in time to have a weekly farmers market on its own to perhaps add to what the Promega area does every Wednesday or Thursday. It's also been the plan of having a nonprofit be that larger scale farmer. As Wade mentioned early on, the Mung families had been farming this area prior to development. If it's not that particular group of people, there's certainly other nonprofits that are doing that right across Goodland Park Road right now, south of Goodland Park. And the conversations have been had with that nonprofit as well. This neighborhood is large enough and will probably have somewhere in the vicinity of 1,200 dwellings when it's completed. And there will be certainly significant market for produce that's grown on this acreage. It's not profit-driven. It's not anything but produce-driven, frankly. I think the other way to look at the revenue is you're not going to have the cost of maintaining this park like you have with other parks that are in the city. This park can be maintained by the people that are actually doing the urban or providing the urban farming. So it will save the city costs of maintaining 20 acres of parkland. I don't think that this is going to be a big expense at all for the city. In fact, I think it'll be probably very revenue neutral by the time it's up and operating. The purpose is not to make a profit from this. It is, and believe me, there are, well, you know, there's been organizations that have had festivals in this city at the parks. They've generated profits, but they've been community-minded organizations. And I think that this is exactly what's going to happen with this market farming, not the community residents, but the 8 to 12 acres that will be remaining to the north, that at some point, hopefully, we'll be able to do some larger scale production, because that's what this property has been, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be returned to that. We dedicated over 110 acres of vacant land for this neighborhood. We more than fulfilled our land dedication. And I think that it would be nice to see a share of that be returned to how this land was being used before. It's been, that area of the 250 acres has been mined because of the subsoil was great for use in the development, but now it's been filled. There's great soil in that area. I'd like to see it be fertilized. I'd like to, we've talked about using weeds from the area lakes to be as fertilizer on this property. We want to make it as sustainable as possible, but we need the help of the city, not financially, at least at this point in time, but at least the faith that this is a good idea to put forward and to do things right. So that's why this idea has been percolating for probably 8 or 10 years. That I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to continue some of that ag use on that 250 acres. So hopefully we can get your support to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Mr. Sveen as he's here?
Phil, I drove the other day that area, and I saw that in the south of, what is the other street? Wood? You know, there is another organization there doing gardening
Yes.
too?
Yes, on south of Goodland Park.
Yeah. So that one is the organization is run for a not-for-profit too, and they're doing some community garden too.
Yeah, it was called Groundswell before. I think they changed their name.
Yeah.
But it's like Wade was talking about, it's an organization that helps youth learn how to grow food that may not have had any direction. And they help them learn to grow. They also learn to market and sell their produce. So it's a very educational operation.
And if I could just chime in too, we have, Groundswell is aware of this concept. We've actually been talking with them for a year plus just about, potential synergies between what they're doing and what we're proposing. Potentially they could do some programming, on our site. They're literally just 100 feet down the road. So again, I think that the geography makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense for them as well. There's economic, saving of the amount of work they've got going on in one location of this size. It helps them in their expenses and their programming.
And I want to be clear, we're not committing them, but
No.
we've just had talks with them, and they are keen on this idea as well.
Yep.
One more. We're going to, just only one more.
It's a comment. I think this is a great idea, I am trying to, don't take because I ask question about the funding, because this is what I do for living, and but I was curious how, it's gonna be, because we need to have an initial cost of planning all of that. So my question is from where the money is gonna come. I imagine it's coming from the park fee that the Terravesa have, committed to the city. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think that's been, well, we've paid park fees.
Yeah, I know.
Park improvement fees, and I
Yeah.
think that's yet to be determined. We've got a lot of work to do yet.
And really, the initial phase is going to be the community garden plots that we have within our other parks. So that really is phase one, and if that continues to grow, and then these other steps could certainly, there's no guarantee, but they certainly could happen, and then we've got to go through that whole funding mechanism and all of those kinds of things. So it's really, we're looking for approval of the concept, and as Phil and Wade said, we've been thinking about it for a long time. We've identified it on the park plan, but just hoping that you're good with it at this point, and we'll continue to work on it, and we'll be reporting back accordingly, that's for sure.
Okay, and Sarah Schrader, you have a question? Schroeder?
Yep, that's fine. I was just curious, Wade, you had mentioned that there are parks in Dane County that we could potentially use as a pilot that have kind of tackled this. Because I think this is exciting that it's something different. But I can't think of an example. Can you help me out as to what an example is?
Yeah, so there's, I believe it's called Silverwood Park, and then there's an Anderson Park. I think there's 2 county parks that are doing that. So yeah, folks can Google that. And then just, maybe I will pass this on to the park commission at some point soon, but actually Lisa McNabola, who's now my coworker in the planning department, she was an intern in our department about 3 years ago. And she wrote her master's thesis on this idea of an ag park. And I will dig that up. And there's all sorts of case studies in there about other parts of the country that are doing this, models we can look at. So I think, yeah, so we've kind of researched a lot of that. We've done our homework, and certainly, again, if the commission supports us, we'd be ready to roll with a planning process and developing a concept and, all those sorts of things, so.
If you'd like to read that, there's a thesis that she wrote. It's awesome, what she put together. And this very much follows exactly what she put together, but it was based on the Fitchburg Ag Plan, not some hypothetical. This was done based on the comp plan in Fitchburg, what she wrote. So it was very well done.
Okay, so we're not voting, we're gathering information. I think it sounds, and you're looking for comments too, of course, but it sounds very hopeful to me.
And actually, if we could get a motion.
You want a
please,
motion and-
Please, to continue on with.
To continue,
with the
okay,
planning.
I miscalculated that. Okay. All right, so we then are looking for a motion to, sort of proceed with planning, is that?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to continue researching the potential Terravesa Ag Park. is that verbiage?
Well, and actually did, in his memo, provided a little bit of a timeline and different action items and those kinds of things, so we'll proceed as those are recommended there.
Got it. And can I ask just one question as part of that, though? We did mention that just the legal aspects may be outstanding and that there still was research. I didn't see that listed within his timing, but is that just kind of implied?
Well, that would be more for like phase 2.
Oh, okay.
Phase 1 is, like I say, we're just gonna continue with community gardens as we have them currently in our park system.
Understood, thanks.
We might have some conversations with legal. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
I personally, I'd like to know what the hurdles might be so we can start having those conversations. That's all.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
No earlier.
Yep. Yep.
Wait, okay. And Wade, did you have a comment you wanted to make? I saw your hand up.
Nope, Scott covered it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to proceed as, Sarah, how did you state that?
I took Scott's language then to proceed with the Terra Vista Ag Plan as proposed, with the timeline as Wade has mentioned in his memo.
Okay, and there's a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Phil, for coming in. Okay. We are on 5D. Wade, again, presenting 2021 update to Parks, Open Space, and Recreation Plan.
If I might introduce this topic, now this is really a proposal to the Park Commission. We've talked about the update of the Park and Open Space Plan, so that's what this is a proposal, a little bit of a method and a process. This is not a discussion at this point as far as pieces of that update and those kinds of things. We do have received thoughts and comments from others, but at this point, we're just looking for approval of the process and the timeline and those kinds of things, not details.
Yeah, and that's a good intro, Scott. And again, I'm just gonna work off a memo that was provided in your packet. So basically, again, staff is really proposing what we're gonna call a minor update. You know, we think the plan is generally in pretty good shape. We think it's served the city well. You know, it has some very specific action items that we've been able to check off the list. So I think it's been a nice, accountable, measurable document. So again, we're really just looking at what I guess we call them tweaks. Again, it has been 5 years, so not a rehaul, not a rewrite, but just a real tweak to the existing plan. So the memo basically talks about two main things: process and timeline, and then major update components. So process and timeline, again, just kind of a standardized planning process, you know, talk about some public meetings. You know, I think something we could really explore with this commission is, again, given the scope of the update, we were envisioning maybe just having agenda items during regularly scheduled park commission meetings, kind of framed as plan update work sessions. So maybe spend half an hour, 45 minutes at, you know, 3 or 4 upcoming park commission meetings, and we think we could really make a lot of progress within that time frame. So we would have those public meetings, we'd have those park commission work sessions, and then the staff would essentially take all that feedback and then prepare an updated draft for park commission review. We'd also present that draft to the public. And then we'd, again, take comments on that draft plan and prepare a final plan, present that to you all. Hopefully that gets rubber stamped. And then we would start the council referral approval process as well. Then that would come back to Park Commission for a recommendation of approval to the council, and ultimately to the council for adoption. So again, you know, 7 steps, process and timeline. We are envisioning a pretty quick process. You know, I think by early next year, we envision hopefully having this thing wrapped up. And I do want to point out that a main reason for updating a parks plan is to ensure eligibility for grant projects, whether it be federal or state. And we did submit a state app for the hub project on North Fish Hatchery Road to the DNR. And basically what the DNR said is, you know, you should really have your plan updated by early next year to make sure we stay eligible for that grant. So that is kind of a motivating factor here to, you know, get this plan updated. Again, I don't think we're rushing things, but point being is let's not, hopefully we don't have to drag this out for, you know, a year plus. We think we can get it done in the next, you know, 6 to 9 months. In terms of what are the update major components, moving on to kind of bullet point 2. Again, right now, for folks that are familiar with the plan, it's basically 3 sections, kind of an executive summary, an inventory, and then action items. We envision keeping that format pretty much as is, and we envision the bulk of the work being updating that section 2, those conditions and inventory, because obviously in 5 years, you know, we've gotten new parks, we've new acreages, you know, a new facility, so we want to make sure all that information is in that inventory and mapped, you know, appropriately. So yeah, basically updating maps, updating our chronology of our inventory in section 2. That would be kind of the bulk of the work. And then I think another kind of bulk of the work piece would be section 3 action items. I believe right now we have about 15 action items that cover kind of the breadth of what happens in our park and rec system. I think we've actually probably completed a good chunk of those. So the ones we completed would come out. Certainly we can make tweaks to existing. And then if we want to add, you know, a handful of new action items, I certainly think that makes good sense as well. So again, that's, you know, kind of a quick and dirty in terms of process and timeline, and also major update components for the plan update. So again, can certainly take any questions or comments the commission might have. And I think the thought here would be just like we did previously, if the commission is okay with this generally speaking or wants to modify, we would just ask for an action to direct staff to proceed as, you know, as the commission sees fit with this update, so.
Okay, Julia has a question?
Yes, thank you. Wade, will you include the town of Madison in this revision?
Yeah, Scott and I have talked about that. Yep, that will be another, yeah, and I don't know how many parks are up there. I know there's at least one.
Yeah.
But
One
yeah, we
park?
would.
Yep.
Only one?
Just one, a big
Just
one.
one. Yeah, and I think they actually have a community garden up there too, so,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll include that, yep.
I have another one. So when you are planning to do this community public meeting, can you also invite the people from the town of Madison to participate in those?
Yeah, we'll need to figure out how to do some of that outreach, but I think that makes sense, yep.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I was not as optimistic about getting it done in 6 months because we're not very good at sticking to a timeline, but by needing to have it done for grant funding is perhaps a good way to hold our feet to the fire.
Absolutely.
Yep, and that's a good point, you know, this is a tentative schedule, things always take longer than anticipated, but again, I think, yeah, the take home here is, I think it's a minor update, and yeah, I think we can keep things, you know, pretty much on track, so.
And I would add too, again, thanks to the planning department for their willingness to help us with this process. You know, if they wouldn't help us, then we'd have to hire it out and those kinds of things. So we're very thankful for that.
Any other comments?
Just one, and this may be too much minutia, but with regards to under the major components, section 3, is it possible rather than having items removed, the action items, that there could maybe be columns where items that have been completed, the cost and all of that could be in one column, what's left to do, and then what the overall budget is, so we kind of know where we're at, where we're going, and where we've been? Does that make sense, or is that too much minutia?
No, yeah, we don't need to go too far down that, but yeah, I think that's we could explore that, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? So we are looking for a motion to adopt, approve.
I'd make a motion to adopt Wade's 2021 update to Parks, Open Space, and Recreation Plan, process timeline, and major components as proposed.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thanks, Wade.
Motion passes. Thank you, Wade.
And Scott, just to make sure, am I off the hook now? There's no no item for the,
You're off the hook, but we certainly value your input. You could
All
stick
right.
around if you wanted to.
well, I will, I'll come back in August. How about that?
Ask a question before you go. What is the name of the park, the town of Madison? Is Badger Park?
Yeah.
No, no.
Scott, do you know?
It's,
Okay.
it's not Badger, it's,
Okay,
Isn't it something like
never mind.
Southdale?
Okay, for
excuse
another day, so, I am curious.
thanks, Wade.
Oh, yes, Southdale Park, I found it, okay.
Do we need to make a motion to extend the meeting?
Yes, we have to assess here where we're at before 8 o'clock hits. And we have to, E and F, to review the capital improvements and the operating budget with the Forester issue, and then finishing out with communications on down. So, comment, Scott?
Yeah, I think we can hammer that out in no time. So if we extend it for 15 minutes, we can do it.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna suggest that we are going to hammer it out and not set an exact time limit on, but that is not license to waste time. So,
Oh, mercy, I
does that sound all right?
sure.
That we're gonna just continue on? Do we need a motion? Is it formal? Are we informal to do this? If this is unexplored territory for us.
Kind of informal.
Let's leave it informal, and if there are complaints, we'll address them next month. Okay, yeah, that takes more time anyway. Yep. So now we are on to 5E, Resolution R 118-21, Capital Improvements.
Capital improvements.
And where was,
So this is what was A
yeah, so it's way at the beginning of the packet.
Oh, so this is
budget.
5A, okay.
Go all the way back.
Oh, mercy.
22-2031 capital improvement plan.
Yep, and this actually was, as you recall, I came to the Park Commission and you recommended your CIP. The mayor did review that, and what I provided for you here is the mayor's capital improvement plan. The one big difference from what we approved was I believe it's while there was a funding source for phase 2 of the hub, and I think they did clarify that, but the idea was that originally was going to be parkland dedication along with money from the police department. But what what the mayor did, here, let me get to it. Or go ahead, Julia, yeah.
Because I am very familiar with the hub and the funding. So last year, it was an amendment to the comp plan that we found how we're going to fund phase 2. It was another amendment in the capital improvement plan last year to reduce in $10 million the amount dedicated to the police, the public safety building. So that one was approved by council, and then with that money, the idea was to fund the phase 2 of the hub. That one was approved last year. So this year, the mayor removed the sources fund to be only park dedication fee. So that one is what is different from last year. So the funding source is changing, and also he's moving forward like 2 years the construction of the phase 2.
So if you look at our packet page 96 and 97, and if you look at the bottom of page 96, you can see that the total cost of the project is $585, for 2024 is $585,500, and then 2025 was $4.5 million. But then at the bottom, that's what Julia is referring to, that in the previous one, it was a combination of parkland dedication fees along with, pardon me? Borrowing, right, right. So now what what the mayor has done is he's made it all parkland dedication fees. So are you looking for a motion here,
Yeah,
Julia?
Yes, we need to, we need to have a motion to approve.
We need a,
Resolution R 11821, correct?
yeah, so we need to move it and then open for discussion.
Okay, do we have a motion for Resolution R 11821, capital improvements?
I'll move to approve Resolution R 11821, capital improvements.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
So, since, the hub, I have been working in the hub since 2019, so I am planning to introduce an amendment to the capital improvement plan to restore the funding and to start the design in 2023 and construction in 24. So, because I wasn't informed of these changes, it was a surprise to see it. And the idea is, if we have park dedication fee, let's use it. But we know that we are going to use most of those fees in the phase one. The idea is also to apply for grants, but some of those grant amount, they're not going to be like millions of dollars. So this is what borrowing was the other option. And last year, when Alder need to bring something new to the table, they need to bring also how we're going to pay it. And last year, when I brought forward this project to the CIP, I also brought forward an amendment to say how we're going to fund it. And it was approved by council. So this is what I say. I am surprised to see that, to see these changes, and I am planning to introduce an amendment.
Patrick?
What is the amendment going to do?
As I mentioned, I'm going to restore the funding sources.
Back to borrowing?
Yes. And borrowing and park dedication fee and grants, But here, if you read this, it's only park improvement, and if you read here they say, what are the changes for the 22-2031 CIP update? They say delay the project from 2022 to 2024 and 25.
Oh, I see.
And then funding sources change from borrowing to pay by park fees collected from the new development if available. So we know how much it costs, how much new development we need to bring, to have $4 million. We have around $2 million in the balance right now, and we are going to use the majority of those funds in the phase one of the hub, and also another project like the pickleball court and all of that. They're going to use some of those funds. So that one was a shocking for me to see if available. So because last year I made the effort to find the money, how to pay for this. So. And, I am sharing with you that, I am bringing back an amendment to restore this.
To bring it forward again and change the funding back to the original.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Do you want an action from the council or from the park commission to support that, or you're just bringing it forward to let us know?
It would be great if I have the support of the park commission, because it means that we are serious about, doing this project, and we know that finding $4.5 million in new development in Park Fee is gonna take, I don't know how many development and how many years, to be honest. So it will be great, but if you don't feel I respect if you say no, we don't want to do it. I'm gonna do it anyway in the CIP, so in the amendment. So
You could make an amendment to make this change within the CIP, right, here?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Well, I
No.
think that's what I'm asking. If the
Right.
Park Commission is in support of your amendment, Julia, then what they should do is they should approve this resolution with that amendment, and then I would present that amendment as I respond to this resolution.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm thinking, is we can make various minor amendments to the
yep.
whole CIP.
okay, I didn't know
Yep,
that. So
yep. Because it's referred to us, so you as the Park Commission can say, you know what, we want to amend this CIP to revert back to what it was
Okay.
approved, or you can just approve it as is. There's
Yeah.
the two options that you can, but Julia is here to let you know that independent of whichever way you go, she is going to submit that budget amendment.
And I didn't bring forward the amendment because the deadline for amendment is July 6th, so we are still working with the amendment, so I haven't submitted all my amendments yet to Misty. But I already draft the amendment, so.
Right, right.
But I haven't submitted yet, but that one is something that, if we can get grants, I know that Wade is
Oh, yeah.
submitting a lot of grants for phase one. It's incredible. Today he sent another one. It will be great, if we can fund with grant. But the idea, remember that this hub, this community center the city is gonna build it, but then it's gonna be run for one not-for-profit or two. We are gonna work on that in the design. And the idea is that there's gonna be a revenue stream coming to maintain the building and to, and the expenses associated with the building, with that rent. So the city is not gonna staff this. The city is not gonna be in charge of paying the whole, operating cost. The idea is to partner with some of the organizations that we are working with the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative, that there are several of not-for-profit that they are doing a great job in our community, and they are very intentional to be in Fitchburg, located in Fitchburg. And if the city can build a place like this for them to operate, it will be great. So this is the vision of that. It's not like, because I heard people saying, we need to hire staff. We need to, and no, the idea is to build it and to partner with not-for-profit that they can be located in that place, offering all the programming, and they pay a rent, for the building. So this is the plan. Yeah.
Patrick?
Just for our information then, for the amendment that you're working on, that you're going to propose to the council in the budget discussion, are you seeing this that you have to find the money again to support this as you move it forward back like it was?
I don't think so, because the money is supposed to be there. So, yeah.
Oh, well, we don't know what will happen as far as, right, yeah.
Just a sort of an FYI to us of where this might go next. I mean, I don't know what kind of a bind you might see as you're looking at this for what your amendment has to do. The one to the council.
What, can you repeat again?
As you, that was back to what I asked you, if you have to find the money again like you already did when this was.
No, I am not gonna find the money again, because in the amendment, I also mentioned that last year I found the money.
Yeah,
Then according to the mayor and some staff that I talked, they are not using that money to fund other projects. So we'll see.
Okay.
You know. But I have to do it because we need to be realistic that this type of neighborhood hub is not going to be funded completely with park fee, because we this $4 million. So you can imagine how many new development we need to have in that corridor to come to pay $4 million in new park fee dedication. So, and it's gonna take years, or maybe 10 years or 15 years, you know what I mean? Because this is, we have to be realistic. So I want to add to the mix, I want to keep the park fee dedication if there are some available, borrowing and grant. So that one is going to be the source of funding.
Yeah. So, just from my standpoint, I understand what you're explaining, what happened and what's in front of us. And I just have a hard time with the total price tag of the project. And so it would be easier from my standpoint to just approve Resolution R 1821 without adding disclaimer about this project, but that's just my opinion, and there are other opinions here to be added. Do we, Sarah, go ahead?
Yeah, I just will say that I agree with your opinion, Sue, just because I will say, reading the mayor's memo attached to the budget, like, he calls out that the phase 2 was intentionally delayed because of all of the competing expenses. And thinking through 2022, when we do absorb the town of Madison, that, I mean, I'll be curious, but just that's, I would assume, is going to be a very financially concerning year. And so just the 2022, moving that up, I guess I would also feel more comfortable just approving as is, but I am always, of course, welcome to amendments.
Any other comments?
This is just about the hub right now, right?
Well, the resolution is regarding the entire capital improvements budget, correct?
Yes, but we're talking about the hub, so I don't know if we are,
But there are more stuff in there.
yes,
Yeah,
there's other things.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
other
the-
things.
That's the only change from what you approved originally.
Yeah.
Was that that's what the mayor changed from the CIP that you recommended to him. That's the only thing that he changed.
So we've provided an approval. Are you asking for something additional? I'm sorry to appear dense, but,
Well, what they did is they referred back the amended version that the mayor provided, so that's what the
So we're voting
resolution
on- okay.
is before you.
we're voting on what the mayor has sent to us. Okay, that's what I'm just wanting to make sure of.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then
Okay.
Julia is planning on doing a budget amendment as she can as an alder.
Okay. All right, so we do need a motion. Or did we have one?
Sarah
Okay.
seconded.
And,
That's on the main motion?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's the main motion.
Okay,
Yep.
and now, and we're going through more than
Yes,
these two
there are
pages.
more than one for park, yeah.
there's more, okay, because there are other things you'd like to comment on.
Yes.
Okay, or question or comment, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Back to, it's listed as page 83, the McGaw Park improvements.
Which project?
Mm,
6211, okay.
Well, it's page 83 that I see on the bottom right here, specifically McGaw Park. So we can make amendments to anything on the CIP, right?
No, if you want amendments, you need to talk to one of the elders and say that they can introduce an amendment.
Right, right.
you know what I mean? So if you want to do an amendment to the, maybe you need to reach out to your elders in your district and say that, talk to them, and maybe they can introduce an amendment.
So let me say what I'm looking at here, and then you say what the right way to do this, okay? And then McGaw Park improvements revised, let's see, project number 6211, that's at the top of this, page 83 here. There is still that $10,000, which is listed as going against the property tax levy. And in some other detail somewhere on here, that I know from before, that is to replace the volleyball posts in McGaw Park. And I've discussed this in the past. They do not need to be replaced. They're perfectly straight, just fine holding the nets. I want the 10,000 removed as not necessary at all, zero.
Well,
How do I do that?
Okay, so you need to contact an elder, and that an elder can put an amendment to remove it.
By the 6th, huh?
Yeah, so good luck.
Are you interested, Julia?
No, then they're gonna call me that I am against park and I am against volleyball, you know.
It saves money in.
The volleyball lobby's coming after you next.
No, there's people who've been playing volleyball every evening last
Okay,
year.
we got
and this
a
year.
motion. and-
Perfectly
Okay.
happy.
Okay, so you are not happy with that. Okay, this is what you want to say.
I want the 10,000 saved for something else, such as,
Okay.
you know,
And any other comments about any other item?
Well, just a quick question regarding Patrick's comment. Just because something is in the budget doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be spent. So, am I correct on that?
Well, and maybe some additional, right, an additional comment to that, Heidi, that really, the CIPs are placeholders to some degree. The dollars that are actually going to be approved would be the 2022, so we certainly have a couple more years to respond to the 2024 request for $10,000 for the volleyball standards. So there's still plenty of time.
it's still in the future, yes. And as I had mentioned in a previous meeting, you could voluntarily take that out, and I would be happy with that. Come look at the posts again like we already did.
Okay.
Okay. Next.
So Chris made a motion to approve, Sarah seconded, and
This is still,
Patrick is looking for one more remark or question he wanted to have.
A question on, it's listed as page 89. This is,
which,
let's see, recurring park system improvements revised. And just a question on if this is updated, at the bottom of the box of all of the amendments going on right here, you have a section, previously funded projects that are not yet completed but still planned. Everybody find that?
yeah, but
Okay.
yep, I can,
Isn't the Oak Meadow drinking fountain, 15,000, isn't that done?
nope, Jordan's working on that yet.
Okay. And how about 2020 Wildwood new roof on shelter, 10,000? Isn't
That's
that done?
completed.
Done.
That's completed. Okay, good.
thank God.
Anything else on that list of those 5 things that is done? Just for an update?
No, none of them, they're
The
still in
others
the,
are still for the
they're
future?
still in the, well, it's 2021, they're in there, so we're still doing good.
The 2021s are in progress this year?
Correct.
Okay.
And can I?
Go ahead.
And I'm gonna be, my other amendment that I wanna bring is a project 6261. Is I gonna, for the 9 Spring Golf Course, I gonna move back the $75,000 to the year 2026 that it was original plan.
Could you give the page number on that? Is,
So you know, I am
90?
planning to do
Okay,
that.
yep, got it. And you want to do what?
I am planning to do that with an amendment.
What's your amendment?
For
She's-
project 6261, the $75,000, it was original plan for 2026, and then they move it back to 2022. I'm gonna move it back to originally plan, because the council just passed, council, we vote like months ago about resolution about this, and the council unanimously was in agreement to pay for this because there is other priorities. So I am planning to move it to the 2026, delay it, not delay it, restore it.
Anything else? Going once? Well done, Patrick. Thanks for everybody's comments. So we will vote on the Resolution R 1821 as proposed. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Oppose, nay.
And then we have the item F, the 2022 proposed Parks, Recreation, and Forestry operating budget with Forester.
In this, typically, oh, should I go, Sue?
Yes, please.
Typically, what happens with the budget is I propose it 1 month and then give you a month to review it, and then we come back the following month to approve it, which we certainly can do. But with the timing of the whole thing, it'd be great if we could, I could discuss the budget and then we could approve it tonight. But I will tell you what I'll probably do is submit it with any kind of changes that you may have tonight. And then we could, in theory, come back in August to approve it. So if we can start, and I'll kind of go through the whole thing. If you start on page 51, you see the budget expenditure for parks details. It has all the different account numbers. What I've done for the proposed budget in 2022, if you look at 289, that's a golf course. That actually goes up $1,000 per year per the resolution. So that's a given. In 290, what I've done is I've put back in there the McKee Farms Park tennis court repairs for $165. And then the median mowing and maintenance, that goes up to $72,500. We did approve a 3-year contract, so that's what that price would be. I did improve or add $2,000 to the prairie long grass burning maintenance.
Give us the account numbers that you're talking about.
290.
Oh, also 290?
Yep, they're all 290, and I'll just go through the ones I highlighted there. I added $2,000 to the prairies from 18 to 20, and then I did add $25,000 into trees for the ash tree removals, which wasn't in there last year.
Question.
Yes.
So the 25,000 is the cost to remove the trees, not replace them? To
This
replace
is for
them.
replacement. Yep,
Okay,
this
got
is
it.
totally replacement.
Okay.
And then I did break down what the $30,500 currently goes for. Then, as I alluded to,
We are still treating ash trees as
Yes.
well, right?
Yes, yep, as part of our management plan. I did refer, when Wade was talking about the community gardens in 340, I did add $15,000 to the operating budget for community garden supplies. So that, in theory, could be for the plan for the Terra Vesa Egg Park.
Just as a note here, I couldn't for the life of me figure out what C period G period stood for, so
I'm
could
telling you right
give
now,
us
community
clues. Yeah,
community gardens.
yeah, okay.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Does now, yeah.
Then 365, that's the utilities. I just put a 2% increase to 43. Then we talk about the park staffing. I am going to propose an additional park maintenance worker, which we've been doing for the last couple years. I'm also going to recommend an additional day, propose an additional day for the city forester to go from 3 days to 4 days, which we did do in 2019.
Question.
Sure.
I'm seeing on, well, it has a red page 31 on it right here. That's your new parks maintenance worker proposal number 9.
Proposal number 9,
Okay.
yes.
At the top right, it says not included in the mayor's
Well,
proposal.
this was, right, it was, I'm proposing again to do it in 2022. This was what the one was in 2021. So I just wanted to provide you what it looked like. That's a 2021. So I'm just going to adjust it so it's 2022, but then the dollars will be a little bit different and all those kinds of things. So I just, yeah, I just showed the 2021 so you knew that I'm planning on doing it in 2022, and will be some adjusted numbers that finance will provide us. And then actually we did in 2019 propose, that's when I proposed to add an hour or a day for Anna, but then I also proposed to reduce the park forestry assistant from 1,000 to 400, and that's when we lost the park and forestry assistant. So that this is the same paperwork that I use, so we'll adjust it and include it in the proposed budget for 2022.
Okay, back a little bit. Page 30 has the list, the 2021 personnel summary. Now, it still should be true that some years ago, the parks crew and the public works crew were combined into what's supposed to be one group.
No, it's all within Public Works, but it's two separate divisions. It's all under the Public Works, but it's two separate divisions.
Yeah, well, what I'm remembering is the idea of, yeah, it's all under Public Works, meaning essentially they work together. They can borrow people back and forth.
They can in emergencies, but typically the park guys will do the park work and the street guys will do the street work.
Sure, primarily.
Right.
But that was supposed to be a big improvement some years ago, of combining and where they
Absolutely.
essentially work together.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
which helps to not need to add staff on either side.
Well,
because they help each other out.
As we continue to grow parkland, there's additional parks and there's additional streets and all those kinds of things. So it certainly is justified, I guess.
And on your personnel summary there, I'm not sure exactly how you add up the numbers, but there is a note on the bottom of there's a shared maintenance worker who is listed on Public Works, who's not listed here, which counts as you, somewhere in the numbers here, you've got another person for the
half
summer
a
season.
person, another half a person.
Yeah. So that's
No,
counted for as well.
No doubt. And then I did include, I think it's on page 57. This is what's going to be happening when the town of Madison comes in. And you'll see that there's a shared Public Works and Parks employee, so that they'll come in October of 2022, but I'm still proposing to add an additional park maintenance person. So I just wanted to share that with you. Then the recreation department is going to basically remain the same. And then I did include the 2021 shelter rental fee schedule.
Question.
Yep.
I think you're going through page 60 there?
60 is the seasonal staffing for the rec department.
Yes, so it'd be good to change your second employee listed
Oh,
there.
there you go.
Austin Costs.
Yep, nope, good catch, thank you.
CC would
Yep.
appreciate that, I'll bet.
Oh, yeah. Good catch, I'll do that. And then we are not proposing any additional shelter fees except for the, if you look way to the, for the special events, it's $900, but we're also going to include $100 deposit. similar to what we have with the other one. So we'll add $100 for a deposit. But those will remain the same.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
So for, let's just say McKee Main Indoor, McGaw, do groups actually come along and say they've got, 50 or more people or 150?
49, absolutely.
Yeah, they all coming in at 49.
Well, not all of them, but we don't go out and count them either, Patrick.
I'm just
So yeah,
wondering.
they do, no doubt.
They do.
We
sort
trust
of-
them.
Some of them honestly say how many actual people are coming.
I would say the majority of them do.
Okay.
And then we also have the community center rental fee structure, because along with the operating budget, you'll be approving these. And then we have the Diamond Field Court schedule so we're not proposing any changes to that.
Okay, several questions on that. The fee for the lights, it's listed under ball diamonds, $10, and I brought this up before, and I had actually talked with Corey Horton when he was the Public Works Director, and $15 for the whole evening for a field is actually the break even. So I sort of see objection to that. Now, I'd be willing to just say it's agreeable to leave it at the $10 if you can get the Monday night and Wednesday night groups to agree and sign a pledge that they will turn off the lights after their last game is over and not just leave them go until the time clock shuts it all off at 10 o'clock. Just even last night, the field was empty at 9 o'clock. No one was standing there and the lights were still on.
I will ask them to do the same.
Okay, then, after that, it's disproportionate. I'm, looking at lights a lot. Disproportionate of $10 for one ball field of lights, and the ball field lights are anywhere from 18 lights to 24 lights per field. $10 for the whole evening. That's 5 hours, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So consider that. Then go down to tennis courts, and this is very questionable about how you even count this. Lights per court, 2-hour time block, $10. And I went over there and counted. There's 8 lights that shine on the north half. There's 8 lights that shine on the south half. So it's very disproportionate as far as covering the electrical costs. For $10 for one ball field lights, for $5, that's averaging, let's say, 20 lights. And then the tennis courts for 2 hours, only 8 lights at the same $10. And I'm also questioning, how do you even charge for this? Because in each half, the north half and the south half, are 3 courts. Now this says lights per court, 2-hour time block. So if somebody reserves all 3 courts in the north half, do they pay $30 or
They do. They
10?
do. They
Okay,
do.
Julia has a comment, question.
Patrick, I understand what you're saying, but remember that the taxpayer already paid taxes, and this is like a list what the city is doing for the resident to use the facility. I don't think we need to be and charge them more. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, because they're already paying for all of this infrastructure.
Well,
you
Well,
know,
actually, proportional to the ball field diamonds, I would actually propose that the lights per court, especially for only a 2-hour block and only for supposedly 1 court, might be reduced to 5.
Let me just share with you, Patrick, that we don't have any renters for the McKee tennis courts at this point.
Are you saying no one rents it?
Nobody rents it.
So we
And
never
they
get
actually
this
go
money
over and
anyway.
They press the button, so
I know
they
you
get
could.
free lights.
Anybody can walk over there right now and push the
Right.
button and the lights will come on.
So if it makes you feel any better, we're not getting any revenue from that at this point, as it is anyway.
Nobody's being cheated. Julia has a comment, additional.
And also, we need to understand that we need to provide our park to be accessible for everyone. So, and that one is another thing that we need to have in mind. So, because maybe kids would like to play in the tennis court, but if we start charging, and people that they cannot afford to pay for that, so we have to have all of things in mind. You know what I mean? So, so we need to talk about our parks should be accessible. you know, and it's great that we charge a minimum fee, but we have to have in mind that too, you know what I mean? So,
What I'm feeling on this, and even as you say, nobody even pays this late fee.
We could, in theory, charge $50 and.
And again, nobody's going to pay it. What I have in mind, at least for the tennis courts right there, for a 2-hour block per court, like you've got it right there, if that's the way you do it, is reduce it to 5, and maybe somebody will, out of the goodness of their heart, actually pay the $5 once in a while.
you know what happens? They go and play. I live 2 blocks away
know.
from the Marquee
Yeah.
tennis court, and they go, and there are always people and kids and young people playing. So maybe they don't know that they need to pay a fee. This is my.
I'm just saying, it seems out of proportion, and I highly questioning how you would even charge for this if somebody walked in. So it looked strange and like a whole anomaly between one set of lights versus another light, 1 court versus 3 courts, and all that stuff. So I'm raising.
Maybe for next year, we can have 12 months to think about whether we want to have it, any fees whatsoever attached to some of these things, is if nobody's paying them, but not for,
Well, nobody's paying them because nobody's renting them.
right.
Yeah, they're.
Right, they're not correct, they're
Yeah,
not
they're-
renting it. They're using them,
they're
they're not
using
renting them.
Yeah,
So,
in comparison to the softball lights, they're using them and they're renting them and they're paying for them and those kinds of things. So.
The idea being if they want to reserve a court, so they definitely get it at a certain 2-hour block that they want, then they reserve it, then they have it, they can wave their piece of paper, and nobody else can take it from them.
Absolutely.
And
All
it
right,
would be
so it's
nice
the
if it was in the
mechanism to
evening
move.
that they would also pay something for the lights.
all right.
Okay, now, this is not on here, I don't know where it is, but it's a comparable example of that, wherever, tell me where that amplified sound permit is, because that's $60, and as we discussed this last year, hardly anybody pays that, and I think it's too high. I think if we lower it, people might actually pay for it.
I think that's what the clerk's department is the ones that manage.
It was
Yeah.
somewhere in the
That
park
manage
commission
Well-
meeting last year.
It was discussed, but it's not part of this.
Yeah, it's not
I didn't see
our
That's
jurisdiction.
not for us to manage.
It is somewhere in our fees, isn't it?
Right, and it's just not,
No, when the shelter rental folks come in, if they're looking for a sound permit, we direct them to the clerk's department, and then the clerk's department manages the sound permits.
Do we have nothing to say of the fees that's charged for the amplified sound permit?
No.
correct, we do not.
Okay, I thought we talked about it a little bit last year, so I don't know where it is.
You need to go to the clerk budget.
Okay, so Scott, did you have more to?
No, that's all I have, and if we can get a motion.
I do have something else that I want to raise. Back to the very first page. This would be account number 140. This is our stipend for us right here. It says 9 meetings for the parks and 4 to 6 meetings for TAC. I'm not sure if that.
No, I'll get that changed to 12. I thought there was a couple years back where they asked us to do only 9, and
they
we
did.
really, yeah,
And
we just had too much business, so we really couldn't.
Right,
So
that is
I
exactly
will
my
correct
point.
that. Yeah, no, that's a good call.
Okay.
Yeah, and here in the packet, it's 12 meetings.
Well, in the center column, it says 12, but then on the right, it says
Oh,
9
there, yes,
meetings.
correct.
Yeah, that's a good catch. And Sue
Yeah.
caught the same thing.
Is that money shared among the parks and TAC? Or is there a certain amount for parks and a certain amount for TAC?
There's certain for parks and certain for TAC. They're two separate.
Why
Yeah,
not
two separate.
pool it? Because when
Added together.
like we have one person missing tonight, so that's money saved essentially, which can be pooled and used.
Yeah.
Especially when we're going up from 9
It really
meetings to
doesn't-
12.
It's really minimal.
It's sort of an internal accounting thing, I presume. Okay.
So I'll make that change too.
Okay.
And if you guys are good with it, then I'll submit as I proposed it here, which would be great.
Okay, so you want, did we make a motion? It's been so long. We did not.
Nope.
Sarah,
I'm
you're so
good
good
with
at
it.
making motions.
I would make a motion to
That away,
approve 2022 proposed Parks, Recreation, and Forestry operating budget per Scott.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Opposed?
you so much.
Okay, so now I'm going to find the other original agenda here. And we're on 6,
Patience.
the 6A, Stoner Prairie Park Planning Ad Hoc Committee update. I was going to simply say that there's a survey out amongst the neighborhoods, an online survey. The deadline for that is the end of the day on July 5th, and that the next scheduled meeting is on the 21st.
Perfect.
And Scott?
Kona Ice, I did get the $400 check today, so they're on. And Wade, we are working a little bit on an RFP for items other than what Kona Ice provides. Pickleball court construction continues. They got the first lift in. They're hoping to get the fence in, and then the second lift, and then the path, so hopefully that'll continue. The inclusive playground, we had a good discussion about that. Then certainly the park, forestry, rec, and director reports are enclosed.
Question.
Yep.
There's one of them, staff report, Parks and Forestry Assistant LTE.
Yes.
Doesn't have any name on it.
That is Samantha.
Okay.
There should be a name on there.
If you can find one. Oh, directed, but questions can be directed to Samantha Swartz.
Yep, that's
Sort of implied. Can you have her, who submitted it,
Yep, that's Samantha.
like the others?
Yep. And then the next two meetings, August 5th and September 2nd. I don't mean to step on your territory there.
No,
Sue,
by all means.
motion to adjourn?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Sue, oh,
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's 8:43.
8:43,
8:43.
43 minutes over.
Not